Hello, welcome to Introduction to Philosophy, Summer 2021 edition. I'm Dr. Mike Labossiere, the professor for the course. And what this video will do will provide a walkthrough of the course, but not required that you watch this, but if you're already watching it, I guess you're watching it. But it'll explain each of the parts of the course in terms of the Canvas navigation and how to do that stuff. So first off, this is, of course, in student view, so yours will look somewhat different. You won't have this purple bar, etc. Probably some other differences as well, depending on how you set up your Canvas account. But here is the basic setup for the course. So here on this side is pretty much the standard set of links navigation for the course. You know, the usual stuff: announcements, assignments, discussions, grades, people, pages, files, syllabus, outcomes, quizzes, modules, etc. And these are all just the standard stuff. Now, the things that are particular to the course, here the first module is the Canvas guides. And if you're already familiar with Canvas, you can largely ignore this, but here is the official Canvas guides, a link to those sites, so we can look at those. Here is the what if grades, which is a useful feature of Canvas. You can go in and see what your grades would be hypothetically. This is a guide to getting started with Canvas. This is from Canvas. This is the video guide to navigating the course, so essentially this. And this is a video guide to quiz content in terms of what's in the quizzes. So in the syllabus section, there's the syllabus video, which is a generic video of the syllabus without the particular dates, so that way I don't have to record it over and over again every semester. Of course, if I do update the syllabus, I do change that, obviously. But generic syllabus video in case you want to see that. There is the syllabus quiz, which is about the syllabus, which is one quiz out of many. And there is the grade guide. Now, the grade guide is important enough, so we'll look at that in some detail. So when looking at your grade, it's important to note how Canvas goes about dropping grades. So I set up all my classes so that Canvas keeps the best 10 quizzes out of however many, say 27 or 30, however many there are, and the best 4 out of 5 exams. In my critical inquiry course, which this is not, I also have assignments, which we don't have in this class, but it's set to keep the best 10 there. And a class that has a paper deadline, such as this class, Introduction to Philosophy, also has, if you looked at the syllabus or looked at the paper, there are 3 options returning in the paper, the +5 deadline, which is extra credit essentially, the emergency deadline, which is full credit, and then the 50% deadline. And so Canvas is set to keep the best 10 quizzes, the best 4 exams, and of course the best grade on the paper. And you only have to turn the paper once. To clarify that, you don't have to turn it in 3 times, just once. That's all you need to do. Now, unfortunately, Canvas keeps the best scores by dropping the worst scores and starts doing it immediately. For example, hypothetically, in a class with 30 quizzes, Canvas will drop 20 quizzes as soon as it can, and though correct, this can be misleading. To illustrate, imagine a student who gets 100% on quiz 1, and then for quizzes 2 through 21, they get 20% on each of those. So Canvas will report their quiz grade as 100%. It'll be correct. But when all 30 quizzes are complete, or all the quiz due dates pass, because Canvas grades uncompleted work with a 0 when the due date passes. So Canvas will then have the full 30 scores to work with, and the quiz grade will be finalized. Now, this finalized grade, and the reason why I'm taking time out of the navigation to talk about this, is because the finalized grade could be a bit of a shock to someone who is unaware of how Canvas drops scores. So, for example, the student who has 100% and the rest are 20%, they'll believe if they don't look or know about how this works, they'll believe they have 100% on their quiz grade, and then when the deadlines pass, their quiz grade will correctly plummet, because then Canvas will be keeping quiz 1 with 100% and then a bunch of those other quizzes. So because of that, there can be some surprises. So a good question is, how do I avoid being surprised? And you've done the first part of it, which is looking at this video, which explains how Canvas drops grades. So how can you tell what your grade is at any given moment? Fortunately, you can uncheck the calculate based only on graded assignments button when you go to your grades. So if you check this will create a correct, but as you can see, rather misleading total. Because what it will do is anything that hasn't been graded yet will simply not count, so dropping those out effectively. And so until all coursework is complete or all the due dates have passed, this displayed grade, calculate based only on graded assignments, will always appear better than the total with it unchecked because of the way Canvas works. Now this is not a bug, this is not a defect, it's working as intended, because if you check this button, it only uses your graded assignments. If you uncheck this, it calculates the grade without just using the graded assignments. So if you're wondering, if your question is, okay, what is my grade in this class if I just stopped doing work, if I didn't do any more work? To find that, uncheck this button, and that will give you your true grade at this moment. Again, this is not wrong, but as you can see, it's quite misleading, and the default is to this. So again, to know what your grade is at this moment, uncheck that, because that will show you your grade as if you just weren't doing any more work. So go with this one. So how do you generate what-if grades? Well, Canvas has a what-if feature, and there's a link. If you go to this guide, you can click on this link, and it'll go through to allow you to approximate your assignment scores using the what-if feature. It goes through a lot of detail. I won't go through that because it's, from a practical standpoint, the important thing is to know this thing about how Canvas drops grades, because that can be confusing and scary if you're unaware of it. And the what-if, though, is neither confusing nor scary. It's just if you want to see what your grade would be with hypothetical scores. And this is very handy to see if taking exam 5 can make a difference, or if you have questions like, what do I need to get an A in this course, or what is my best grade possible? Canvas can do all that for you with the what-if grades. The only thing to do is make sure that when you're doing what-if grades is, clear them up before doing more what-if. And it can't affect your real grade for obvious reasons. There's also a very detailed guide, a link here, to viewing all your grades in a course. So that's how to do your what-if grades, how to see more details about the grades, and again, the very critical thing about how Canvas is dropping grades. And that's an important thing to know, again, because of the potential shock once Canvas gets around to dropping everything when all the grades are completed or all the due dates have passed. So back to the home page. So that's the grade guide. The syllabus quiz is a quiz about the syllabus. It's just one of the quizzes. The office hours are done through Zoom, and here's a link of how to sign up for them. I'll post, basically, we've probably done this before, I'll put on the calendar a link you click on to sign up for office hours. I'll send you a Zoom link for that time, and then I'll show up on Zoom. You show up on Zoom, we do the office hours, and done. Course documents. For the book, there's no book to buy, because I can't say fortunate, but when work has been out of the print, if the author's been dead a long time, it goes in the public domain, and many of the philosophers we'll look at, pretty much all of them, have been dead like a really long time. So their works are free. So rather than having you pay like $100 or $200 for anthology, here's a free PDF, and it's real philosophers. This is not just something that I just typed out myself. It's the same things you'd pay a ridiculous amount of money for, and it's a free PDF. You don't have to print it, you can just view it as a PDF. There's also a full set of the notes from day 0 to the end, and these aren't broken up in terms of like hundreds of files, one for every reading. It's all the reading. So this is essentially like downloading the entire book. Same with the notes. The notes are all the notes, all the parts, and they're divided up obviously by content and the sections, but there's just one big note file to download. Here's the guide to the paper in PDF format, and it walks through the paper step by step exactly how to do that. There's also the PowerPoint, and I put them here. So what you can do is, if you want the PowerPoint, you can just click on them to download them. There's one for each of the parts. There's one for the paper. There's one for the syllabus. And they essentially, the PowerPoints are outlines of the notes. So in terms of detail, readings obviously the most detailed. Then the notes are outlines of the readings, and the PowerPoints are outlines of the outlines. So there can be things on the exams and quizzes that are not on the PowerPoints, again, because they're cut down versions of the notes. Standard PowerPoint, you really try to keep them as minimal as possible. For grade estimators, I include these as a Google Sheet and an Excel grade estimator. This is before it's a leftover essentially from Blackboard. But you can do all this with the what if grades and get the same result. But if you prefer to use like a spreadsheet to do calculations, you can get these, and it has a very detailed guide to how to use the grade estimator to estimate your grade. Letters of recommendation guide. This is mainly so if you want a letter of recommendation from me, that it provides the basics for it, and perhaps most importantly, it has the FERPA release form, because without the FERPA release form, I can't say anything about your grades beyond you took a course with me and you did stuff. But if you want a full letter of recommendation that mentions the grades, gotta do the FERPA thing. Here is all the video content I recorded this in summer 2020, so it's the playlist on YouTube, all the videos. They're not monetized, so they're supposed to be all ad-free. Some resources, nothing to do with the class. It's a link to the library, another link to this, and then some new analytics. Probably won't use any of this, but it's there. Now, in terms of taking the class, this is essentially, you can do it at your own pace. I will, as I noted before in the announcements, I'll put an announcement out each day saying, what the virtual class for that day is about, and keep you up to date with everything. But you do have the option of pacing the course yourself to finish it, early, and no matter what pace you pick, you of course will have to complete it by the end of the semester. So this is based on the sort of the standard in-person model of the class that existed in previous years. And so there's a total of 24 classes with a final exam, and one way to go through the course is just the standard week for the summer courses is a Monday through Thursday. The reason for that is that some years ago a big thing like with companies and businesses was the 4-day-a-week work week, and the theory was it would save lots of money not to have a 5th day. And of course people still work 40 hours a week, you just did 10 hours a day instead of 8. And they found out this did not save any money at all, but summer classes stayed on that pattern. So that's why I taught the class after that and just kept the same pattern. So each of the days you can go and click on a class, and what it will have for each class is this. The first one has the files, because you can get the readings, the notes, the paper guide, and these are the same as the identical files, just links to them. And here are the videos for the first day, the general syllabus, what is philosophy, aesthetics and epistemology, etc. And these are short YouTube recordings, 10 to 25 minute range, covering the material, essentially narration with PowerPoints. Also, there'll be the course work that is recommended to do like that day. So the argument basic assessment instrument pretest, this is assessment stuff, the syllabus quiz, and quiz 1. And each day is set up, each day of the class is set up the same way. There'll be video content of the video that would be covered in the course on that day. And if there's any work, recommended for that day, it'll be there as well. And so one way to do the course is to use that kind of standard, if you want to replicate kind of the in-person experience, but kind of, is just go through each of the classes, each day, and, look at the videos. And of course the videos also say, they correspond to the readings and the notes, so you'd be able to look at the readings and the notes and the PowerPoint and see exactly what everything is covering. And as the syllabus says, the course is broken into 4 parts. So part 1 is classes 1 through 6. The last class of a section is, in a sense, not a class. What it is essentially like all the work that should be done for that part. So for part 1, there's these 5 quizzes. The syllabus quiz is just a quiz. It's just called the syllabus quiz because it's about the syllabus. There's also practice exams which do not count towards your grade, either for or against it, and then exam 1 covering part 1. And so one option again is to do the course in that model, just going through each day. Now, of course, you can, if you wanted to, you could do multiple classes per day, and you could in theory just do the entire class in one day. And if you had enough time to watch, well, actually you couldn't, because I guess the videos, there's about 45 hours of videos. You couldn't watch them all in one day, but you could in theory do the entire class in one day. And for the final exam, that's just the final exam, exam 5, and here's information about that. So one option to do the course is go through day by day based on the standard summer class model. There's also this is from a night class. I teach this class in the fall as a night class. So if you essentially, each one of these is like a week of material, so that could be an option as well if you prefer that model. Another option is you can just go right to the work. If you want to focus on the work, I've got each of the quizzes broken down by part. Part 1 covers, the quiz of part 1 cover part 1, and this is a syllabus quiz, quiz 1, 2, 3, 4, and the quizzes, as the syllabus notes, they're worth 5 points. You got 5 minutes to take it, and there are 5 true-false questions, and the instructions always say what the quiz is about. So before you take it, you can go and see what it covers and look at the notes and review them, and then take the quiz. The due date is when you should do it, and if you don't do it by then what will happen is when that due date goes by, Canvas will put in a kind of like a temporary or hypothetical 0 in for that score. They're available until this date, June 18th at 11:59 p.m. And so you have until then to complete it for full credit. And that is a absolute deadline because I stopped getting paid before then, I think. So then grades have to be in. And similarly for all the other quizzes. The next quiz number 2, this says what it's about. Similarly for quiz 3, 4, 5, etc. So one approach is to just go right to the quizzes, and these are the quizzes for part 1. And again, each quiz says what is it about. These are the quizzes for part 2, and again, each quiz says what it's about. And for part 3, same deal. Part 4, same deal. The survey quiz and STAR survey and GX survey quiz, these are part of the assessment stuff. I'll give more explanation of these later, or you can go and read about them in Canvas. Practice exams. You don't have to do these. They do not count for you or against you, but they can be useful because, well, first of all, you can test your knowledge before taking a real exam. And so if you do well on a practice test, you'll probably do well on the real exam. You can also see, without any risk in terms of your score, the sort of questions that'll appear on real quizzes, true-false questions, and also exams. And there's a slight chance that you may see a question on a practice exam that gets repeated in the real one, because all the questions on the practice exams are also in the real question banks. And again, there's no time limit, there's no due date, you can do as many as you want. So you can take this same one over and over if you want, but it does not count for your grade or against your grade. They are, as the name says, simply practice exams. So just like practice in sports, they don't count towards your your overall, winning or losing in the semester. So those are the practice exams, and scrolling down. Here are the real exams. There's one exam for each part, and for these exams, they're worth 100 points. This one's due May 21st. Deadline's June 18th at 11:59 p.m. Again, that's the absolute end of the semester. It's all over then. And you have 60 minutes to take it once you start the clock. And for this one, you get 2 tries. If you don't use a second try, it keeps, it scores that as a 0, but keeps your attempt. If you do both attempts, it keeps the better of the 2 for the exam 1 score. And this covers part 1. And likewise for the other exams, exam 2 covers part 2, exam 3 covers part 3, exam 4 covers part 4, and this is all the parts are labeled in the notes. They're also labeled in the readings, so if you're going through the notes, you'll see, obviously part 1 begins at the first page, but you'll see part 2 in the notes, and you'll see part 2 in the readings, and also the PowerPoints are broken up by parts. And so part 1 corresponds to exam 1, part 2, exam 2, etc. Now the final, exam 5, is worth 100 points, but it's got 100 questions, and you have 2 hours to take it, and you get, if you want, 2 tries at it. And it takes the best of the 2. If you just do 1, it takes that. And this covers everything. So it covers, parts 1 through 4. So those are the exams. And scrolling down, and we're scrolling, and we get to the paper. So here's the paper guide, and this walks you through the paper step by step, exactly how to do it, exactly how I grade it, and it includes a sample paper that will show you what I'm looking for. Here's a video on the paper draft. Here's the intro to paper guide video, which essentially is this, except it's a video, me talking about the paper. There's also a video on the paper word count and style, and a video on the paper deadlines. So if you're not sure about how to do the paper, or like how to do a draft, or what the word count should be, or how the deadlines work, it's all here. These are the videos, and this is the guide to the paper. Now there's also, in addition to the turning the paper in for real, which we'll talk about in a moment, there's also an ungraded plagiarism check, which is exactly what it says. And if you want more details, I did a video on draft and plagiarism check guide video, which goes through how these work. So the plagiarism check runs a plagiarism check using Turnitin, and it will report to you what percentage of the paper is potentially plagiarized, and you can keep running it through as many times as you want. It's ungraded, so it doesn't count for you or against you. I don't even look at these. So yeah, don't turn in your final paper here, because it's exactly what it says it is. It also, of course, doesn't load your paper into the plagiarism checker, the Turnitin files, because otherwise you just keep flagging yourself for plagiarism. Ungraded draft, exactly what it sounds like. You can turn in as many drafts as you want. I'll comment on them using the Canvas comment features. You can go and look at the comments. You can make changes, upload another one. It's ungraded, not in the sense that I won't put a score on it. You'll get a hypothetical score, but the draft does not count towards your grade or against it. It doesn't harm you to not do one. It doesn't help your grade directly to do one, but of course, drafts tend to improve grades. And again, it's ungraded, so don't turn in your final version of the paper here because it's ungraded. So to get the actual grade in the paper, you got to turn it into one of these. This is the best one because this is the true deadline, which is if you turn it in and you do it on time, you get your base score plus 5. So that's extra credit. Then a week later is the emergency deadline. This is in case things go wrong. This is the real deadline. This is the, hey, here's an extra week in case things go wrong deadline. And this is full credit. And then there's a 50% credit deadline the next the next day, and just as like a last, because that's the end of classes, a last attempt to get some credit. And when these deadlines come up, you'll see these be unavailable. But this is the best. This is full credit. This is half credit. You only need to turn the paper in once, although Canvas treats these as grade scores. I've set it so it keeps the best out of these 3. And again, you just need to turn the paper in one time. You don't have to keep turning it in, although you will see like a 0 like here when the deadline passes, and here if you turn this in. But again, you just need to turn it in once. Here's a guide on how to upload papers. Here's a guide on how to view paper comments. Here's the guide on how to view turn-in results. And here's the guide to how to print a paper from Canvas with comments. Assessment. So I have to do assessment, for various purposes, blah, blah, blah. Here's the explanation of it. Essentially, the assessment credit just helps you. The Argument Basics Assessment Instrument pretest, this is designed essentially to see how your skills are at the start before you've done anything in the class, and the post-test is designed such that it tests how how much you've improved, hopefully, or gotten worse, hopefully not, in the course. And this is for our assessment process. And again, the assessment stuff only helps you. It doesn't hurt your grade. And we're doing this again for essentially administrative reasons, because we have to do this assessment. But I won't, go into great details about our assessment. Okay, so that's the walkthrough of the class. All of the parts explained. And of course, if you have additional questions, contact me through the handy Canvas messaging, or if you want to discuss things virtually, select an office hours and we can talk through it on Zoom. So thank you for watching this video, and I hope it has been not terrible. So take care, and I'll see you in the future.